topics like this, where we can cooperate with other technologies. And yes, we really don't know if such working group will be established in the end, but we will do our best to realize this goal that it will.
Thank you, Andrei.
Great, thank you.
So then it is announced we can go over to Lee. Huh? So you will talk about working groups, implementation and framework. Huh?
Perfect. So thank you. Are you guys able to see my screen? I believe it's being shared. Yeah, perfect. Just hop in and let me know if there's any issues with the screen loading or anything like that. Yeah, thank you again, everybody, for being here. It's a lot of participants, which is really nice to see. As mentioned, my name is Lee Estrellado. I'm working at vgbe, which is an energy association out of Germany. And today, for ETIP, I will be talking about, as mentioned, implementation of working groups and a framework for tracking and mapping actions for research and innovations, as well as strategic actions across Europe. Just to put this in the perspective of the working project setup, this would be working package 3. So first, as we've already mentioned, the objective of basically the overall, one of the objectives of ETIP as a whole, as well as of this section, is to provide consensus-based strategic advice to the set plan, and as well to the hydropower industry as a whole, to help facilitate implementation of priority actions, which again, as mentioned earlier, have been recommended through the Hydropower Europe Research Project in the research and innovation agendas and the strategic industry roadmap, which are two really important and interesting documents for the industry, and were already discussed earlier by Mark when discussing Hydropower Europe. So, the mapping actions, the objective of this section of the ETIP hydropower is to create, implement, populate, and maintain an online system for showing and tracking hydropower related research and innovation, as well as strategic actions, as well as funding programs. So actions can be any industry projects, research and innovation projects, publicity campaigns, and things like this that are addressing either research and innovation or strategic needs within the hydropower sector that aim to increase knowledge for the sector or improve the situation for the hydropower industry. We also will be tracking and mapping funding opportunities for European projects for hydropower. And this system, this online system or online platform, will be directly integrated into our ETIP hydropower website for ease of access and ease of use for the hydropower industry. So now, getting into what information we'll be collecting and providing for the actions. First, we need to take a look at what is already out there. So what other existing platforms are currently available for tracking research and things like this. So many of you probably are familiar with the European Commission's Fortis, which is the main resource for tracking EU-funded projects for research and innovation. Another one would be, for example, the NHA, which is the National Hydropower Association in the United States. They have a platform for tracking research in North America, so that's also something that we need to take a look at and consider how we can use these and how we could work with them as to not repeat efforts for tracking. And then to collect information for these projects within Europe and throughout the world, we want to look at some general information, so like action titles, descriptions, the dates if the project is open or closed, website information and organization who worked on it, as well as their relation to the research and innovation agenda, as well as the strategic industry roadmap. So how it connects back to these priorities that were set by the European hydropower industry. So this information, these actions, will be collected through a questionnaire that we will be working on and putting out to the ETIP hydropower network. And this collection is quite important because it really needs to be a sustainable and systematic process, because we want to be able to update it, get new information, and really maintain the system so that the information that's in the system is really relevant and useful to the hydropower industry, and it doesn't become obsolete just after publishing it within a year or so. So we really want it to be updatable, let's say. Of course, this requires still a lot of human review, but also we want to make this as automated and useful as possible. The next thing would be that we're tracking would be funding. So what type of funding organizations are giving money for projects in Europe? So the organizations, the specific programs and their aims, as well as maybe their contact. And what's really important is that they're active. These funding opportunities are active on different levels. So we want funding opportunities that are doing European projects, as well as national level projects and specific industry focused project as well. So it's really important to have this mix available for our tracking system. Next, the benefits of tracking and mapping these actions and funding system is that it can guide the hydropower industry to what has already been done. So as I mentioned, there are already some systems that track research, but really focus on hydropower, and one place where you can see what has happened in the industry and know what's already been done, which is a really important tool, which of course avoids duplication of efforts. So you can see if a project was done in another country a few years ago, or if somebody is already planning on doing a certain action or project, you can avoid duplication of efforts and maybe work with them or think of another topic that's also really useful for the industry. So this would also help making sure that topics are really important, cutting edge issues for the hydropower industry. So again, we're not repeating projects, but really can move forward on important issues. Additionally, this will allow ETIP Hydropower, the Secretariat and the people working there and the consortium to identify the gaps in research and innovation, as well as strategic projects. So what hasn't been done, what should be done, and this would be decided in the various bodies of ETIP, as well as through working groups and things like this. This also allows ETIP to optimize funding programs, so pairing them with the gaps in research and innovation. This is a really useful way to see which funding programs fit best with specific research topics and projects. Next, as mentioned before already a couple times, we'll also be working with working groups in the ETIP project. So we want to establish a set of specifically industry-driven working groups to primarily focus on priority research and innovation and strategic actions, which have already been identified and will be updated from the research and innovation agenda and the strategic industry roadmap. And additionally, provide detailed topic-specific recommendations and priorities for action, as well as some policy guidance. So the process that we're going to take to develop and set up these working groups is, of course, similar to what I mentioned before, is you first need to know what's already out there. So we need to track and figure out what external working groups are already active in hydropower. For example, at vgbe, we have working groups in operation and maintenance. So we want to make sure that we're not having overlapping topics, overlapping issues. So it's really important to first get a big overview of what's already going on in the industry. Then with that knowledge and also looking to the priorities laid out in the two documents produced by Hydropower Europe that are still open, we want to take this information and choose working group themes and topics. These will also be discussed and recommended through our General Assembly, the Governing Board, and also our Scientific Advisory Board, which were all mentioned earlier in our structure. So once we have topics and themes picked out, we need to establish these, and they will of course be supported by the ETIP Secretariat and other bodies within the ETIP consortium and structure. The groups will be made up of experts from across the hydropower industry and sector, from the General Assembly, and the working groups, like a standard or some other working groups, are expected to meet online and face-to-face and work on their designed topics. So, as also mentioned earlier, there's going to be various tasks that these working groups are going to look to do. Again, heavily working on issues described in the RIA and the SIR. So, identifying and prioritizing and drafting key hydropower related research integration topics and messages, drafting white papers for increasing public awareness in the situation for hydropower, updating these two documents from Hydropower Europe, and then again, facilitating the actions. So making sure that these priority actions are being explored and staying relevant and moving forward for the hydropower industry. Also drafting technical statement reports and things like this. So this information that is developed within these working groups will be looked at through our General Assembly and the Governing Board to make sure that everything is on the proper, has a clear message and can be put out to the larger hydropower network and industry. So we want this information to really be shared and disseminated through our network via our website and other social networks and things like this, so that it can really help the industry move forward. From me, that was most of the topics I wanted to cover. So again, the working group structures, as well as the mapping of research and innovation actions. I'm happy to take questions. If not, we can also move forward to the next section with Shenya and Janira. Thank you all for your time, and please let me know if there are any questions.
Hello, Lee. Thank you very much. There is this question from Peter Stetna, who would like to know who exactly shall do the mapping. Perhaps you can provide more clarification on that.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So the mapping will take part initially as part of this ETIP project, this ETIP hydropower project. So the consortium will do the mapping, and this is a role for the Working Package 3 group, which includes myself. So we will be doing this mapping and tracking initially, and then, as we said, we want it to be updated and maintained in the future. So whatever ETIP hydropower moves forward, we'll also want to take this role so that the tool stays relevant and useful for the industry. So in the initial stages, this would be the ETIP project, consortium, and then moving forward, the ETIP structure and group.
Yeah, Lee, in principle, we can add that we will send out some questionnaire.
Sure.
For all information which cannot find ourselves. Mainly what is happening on, let's say, national levels or local levels in companies and so on. So there will be some questionnaire.
Yeah, this is really important. So going back to the actions that I mentioned tracking before, we'll have this questionnaire. And this is really important to be able to get a really good overview of all the projects that we've done. So we really want to reach a large audience with this questionnaire, which will hopefully be sent out in packages in the next few months to really track and get input from a lot of different areas. So this is really important, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about it in the coming months.
Thank you, Lee. There is another question from Elodie Denisart. She would like to know what could be the place of a small and even very small hydropower, meaning pico or micro production in this framework. So she says, when we talk about unifying the voices, we may think that every kilowatt hour counts. Someone would like to take this question, perhaps Lee or anyone that has already presented.
I think this question maybe goes to Anton, or maybe Shenya would like to take, or somebody. I don't think it's related so much to structure.
Maybe one answer to this could be that indeed we need this participation even for small hydropower. I fully agree, and one possible avenue could be to indeed participate in the General Assembly and to have a working group on this topic, for example, in the ETIP, to see how this can be strengthened and also integrated with